Say that again. All right. Yeah, if you would mute yourself, please. If you're not muted.
Hey, Danny.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, please mute and we'll get going. All right. Let's see. So we, hey, Mike, good to see you on there too. I saw you in the chat. We did the big release yesterday evening and, got everything rolled out. Obviously with something this big, there's going to be some, oh, no problem, Jess. That's all right. Obviously with something this big, there's going to be some smaller hiccups and, the good thing is everything mostly came through over into production the way it was supposed to. There are some small hiccups that we're working through with the phone system that should be hopefully addressed today. And we'll let you know what those are as we go through this. But yeah, just you get everything working on the staging environment and testing environment, you bring it over to production, and then you find some things that just weren't anticipated, but we'll get it through quickly. The good thing is most everything is operational as it should be, and super excited about finally having these changes in here. It's going to allow us to do a lot more moving forward. Let's see. All right, the big one thing too, really quick, that I want to mention is there's a pricing change. We've been talking about this. We've sent emails out for a couple months now and talking about it on the Q&A calls. If you're not aware, I want to make sure that you are aware that with the introduction of the phone system, we're including in all the packages. We have 3 packages now. We're including phone numbers and minutes and text messages within each of those. And so the hope is that you can just go ahead and port over numbers into the forefront phones and cancel your call rail if you don't have reasons to keep that anymore. And so you'll have savings there, as the pricing will be much cheaper with the new one. So if you haven't seen it, I'm going to show you really quick. Does everybody see the screen? Well, yeah, you should be seeing it. Cool. All right. So the account pricing change, let me try to zoom this in a little bit for you. Account pricing change, most people are in this middle package now. Okay, so everything automatically updated for you and prorated for the current time period, to where you can have the 6 users and then any additional or 25 per user per month above the 6. So if you've got extra people in your account that you're not really actively being used in the account that are putting you over, you might want to disable those or deactivate those users. For only a single user account, you go to the 99. And then I don't think we upgraded anybody to the elite in there. So it's mostly all in the professional plus additional users is where it all went. So all of these packages will include the forefront phone numbers, call minutes, text messages per month. And you can see if you are in the professional that you're getting the 10 phone numbers included, 1,000 minutes, and then 1,000 text messages. And so this is quite a bit above what CallRail is giving monthly. And then you're having to pay extra on the overages. So you're going to get way more just every month included in that monthly, to where you're not paying anything additional for those. If you go over those minutes, allotted minutes, the calls are just going to be 2.5 cents a minute, which I think is half of what CallRail is. And then the overage text are just a penny a minute, or I'm sorry, a text. And we've got the free call recording. So it actually ends up being quite a bit cheaper. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. And it's great to have everything more in one system too, instead of having the separate applications that you're going in and out of, making sure things are here, there, and everywhere. And we're going to have a lot more ability to do things with reporting and stuff like that with the phone numbers that we just weren't able to do with CallRail, especially things like voice over IP that are being worked on. You can even continue to use CallRail within. So this doesn't mean you can't use the CallRail integration anymore. It's still there. You can still use it exactly how you were using it alongside forefront numbers. But after making that transition and using those forefront numbers for a little bit, I'm already going to be canceling my CallRail. So That's where we're going with it. So let's jump into what we've got here now. So the phones, you can still use, like I just said, the caller integration. It's still there in your account. Voice over IP, we had some last minute little hiccups with that. So that's actually, we didn't release that last night, but we will be releasing it soon. We're getting those extra kinks worked out so that you can make those outbound voice over IPs from the web browser. I hate having to say that, but it is what it is. And we'll get through that and get that added in. It's going to be simple porting from CallRail. So most of us in here are using CallRail. If you have CallRail phone numbers you want to keep and you want to get those same numbers put over into Forefront so that you can then eventually cancel CallRail, just email support@Forefront CRM and the team will assist you with that. And being that it's CallRail, they at some point in the past moved over to the same back-end phone stuff that we're using, which is Twilio. And so it actually, instead of being like what it used to be, like 4 weeks or 6 weeks or something like that to port a number, if your number is not super old in CallRail, it should be possible to have that transfer over. We've had some within 24 hours. So it should be pretty quick to get those even ported over. But just email the support team, support@Forefront CRM, if you're ready to start porting some of those numbers over, and they'll assist you with the process and help you to get that through. It's pretty simple. It really is. There's not much involved. All right, creating the answering sequences. So we're going to start doing the demo stuff of what's going on with these phone systems. So I'm going to jump back over to the pipeline here. Well, actually to Forefront. We'll get into the other stuff with the pipeline in just a minute. I want to start with the phones though. So for the phone system, you got answering sequences and phone number options, all that kind of stuff I'm going to cover really quick. So if you go into your settings, we now have this phone settings page, and you can see if you've got your CallRail integrated, that'll still be over here integrated, and you'll see those numbers there. And then you have the Forefront numbers now. If you want to add a number, you can click Get Number here. And so let's just do that really quick. So you're going to put in your area code or whatever you want to prefix it with. I think you can add more numbers if you want, and then it'll pull these in. And what we did here is just really cool because you don't want to be using a number if you're getting a new number, right? This is for new numbers that you're not porting over from another service. So what you want to do is, like, one of these looks good. Let's see. You can click more numbers too if you don't like the ones. If you look now, don't expect to get 888-8888 or whatever. The attorneys are paying fortunes for those things. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time. I'm going to go to this first one. But what I want to do is click this link to check the spam risk, because you want to make sure that that number has not been used for spamming people and been marked on a different thing. So we just send you over to the spamcalls.net, and they show you if there's any kind of issue with that number. So you don't end up getting a number that's been used for spam and not know it, and have your messages not be delivered and all that kind of good stuff. So that's available there. I'm going to select that. I'm going to give this a label. So let's say I'm going to use this for Google Ads. Answering sequence. If you don't have one set up yet, you'll need to set up one first. So I actually advise you creating that answering sequence before you start getting numbers. And I'll show you that next, but I've already created this main sequence. And then whenever a call comes in, or a text comes into this number, whenever it creates a lead, I want this to go into analysis needed because they called me. Or actually, yeah, we'll do first contact needed instead. That's going to put that into a contacting status. And I'm going to show you all about this when we get into the pipeline. And it's really your choice, but I'm going to go ahead and get that number. And now I've got that number showing up down here. If I come into this, you can see we've got other options here. Once you go to manage that, you're going to be able to see the stats on inbound, outbound calls and texts that have been sent through this number. And you'll have different options here. So this whisper message is the message that the user that's receiving the call, a user on your team in Forefront that's receiving the call is going to hear that whisper message. Same thing as in CallRail. to have those set up. Typically you say something like call from Google ad number. And then that's going to be whispered to you, right? Whenever you pick up that call. So you know that this call that's coming into me right now is coming from that. Like I'm typically the Google ad calls, I want to pay a lot more of attention to because those are typically much more motivated sellers. Outbound message that the person that you're calling is going to hear is more for things like this call may be recorded for training purposes or whatever, right? You can put whatever you want. And then as soon as they answer the call, they're going to hear that. So if you're in a state that requires the two-party consent for recording, you definitely want to put those kinds of things in so that you don't get in trouble for recording calls without consent. All right, default campaign. I haven't created that campaign, so I'm going to leave that as none for now. I'm going to have any of these leads come in, go to Ray J on my team. And default status I already said was first contact needed. The temperature on these, I'm going to put hot because typically my Google ad leads are hot. So I'm going to save that. I've created all those different things. Now let me show you the main sequence that I created for the answering sequence. When you go to create one of these, obviously this is for incoming calls, right? Because it's an answering sequence. So if you want those recorded, make sure you toggle this and then hit save. Now I set this up. You add steps by clicking the plus new step button, and then you're going to have these different options. So the greeting is basically the thing that the caller is going to hear as soon as they call. So if you want to make it seem like you're a big company, it's like, I'm going to forward this call to, you know, somebody on the team or whatever. You can do whatever you want. And we've got several options for these. So you can put in the text to speech, which sounds really good. It's not a janky like robot-like voice. It's actually a pretty good robot voice. And so you can just type this in and it'll be spoken to the person when they call. You can also upload a recording. So if you want to have it in your voice or in your team's voice or whatever, you can record that and then upload that file here. All right, I just have this call recorded for call quality assurance. And let's go to the next thing. So the next one is to dial. This is to forward the call to somebody on your team, right? You're going to need to put in the telephone number of somebody on your team and then say how long it should ring for. And I don't like 60 seconds because that's a pretty long time for somebody to wait for. You know, they might even get to the point where they just hang up because they don't feel like it's ever going to go to a voicemail if it's supposed to. But it's there if you feel like that's necessary for you. I actually prefer somewhere in the 20-second to 30-second range, but this is all your option. Obviously, if you've got a step where you've got multiple people in line, you might do a shorter one and then just try that person for a little bit. And you can do that. That's what that's for. The other option in there is a simultaneous. So if you've got multiple people that can take these calls, you can put them into a simultaneous ring. And so you just put in the numbers here. You put them in here. Once you put them in, I think they put in. Yeah, if you just do a space after you type it in, then it separates them like that. So, and I think it's also if you do a comma. So just play around with that, but it should look like that once it's accepted as a valid phone number. And then you put how long to ring all of those people. And then whoever picks up that, whoever answers that will actually end up with the call, and the other people, it will stop ringing their phones. All right, so that's really cool. Make sure that'll help make sure that each of these calls that comes in actually gets answered by somebody in your team. The last thing that you can do is create a voicemail. If I choose that, I've got the same thing as the message. I can do text to speech or put a recording, upload a recording into here to be used. Now, highly advise that you do this as your last step, because if it goes through and rings all those people for that amount of time, nobody picks up, you don't really want it going to somebody on your team's cell phone voicemail, right? Because then that voicemail is not within your system. I think if it's recorded, it probably still goes in there. I guess the team could help clarify that, and you can test that in your own account to see if it does go to somebody's personal. But the problem with that is they hear that personal person, you know, their cell phone's voicemail message talking about, you know, leaving a message. So may not be a big deal to you, but if it is, leave the ring at times a little bit slower. I've got this one just at 15 seconds, and then I got the voicemail. All right, and then you can move these around. I mean, you obviously putting things like the voicemail for first is not desirable, but you can move these if you got the dials, the different ones that you're dialing in different order, you can move them around with this button here. So it's really cool. You can set up all of that. And then you have that answering sequence, and then you can see your stats all in here for the number of minutes that have already been used for this billing cycle, right? It's every month. And number of text messages out of the allotment. And then of course, what your current overage cost is. And we did it this way rather than doing credits because it's, you don't want to have it to where your team ends up in a roadblock because they can't continue to make calls or all that kind of, especially receiving things. So even if you go over your allotted, it's going to still work, right? You're just going to have the overage charge stuff start to build up. And I think Sean can verify this, but I think we have something set up to where if you do go over these allotted, you'll get a message stating that fact so that you know that it's happening. So,
yep.
Yeah. So if that happens, like 5 days into the month, you might want to, look at what's going on or whatever, see if your team is doing some crazy calling stuff. But anyway, that's the power of that. The other thing that I wanted to mention really quick is even if you're not using CallRail, even if you have like some other service call tools, or I'm not even sure, what's RingCentral or any of those other services, and you have phone numbers you want to bring in, we're able to port those as well. And the process is a little bit different than from CallRail, but simple nonetheless. Just email support at forefrontcrm.com to get that started. Okay, so that was Forefront Phones, and that was setting up the phone number and the answering sequence. I think I have, yeah, okay. So the next thing here is the one-click calling. Let's see, there's a couple things in chat. So let me look at those really quick. Okay, yeah. So if you make an outbound call right now, being that we don't have the voice over IP just yet, when you make the outbound call right now, the system will do the same thing as it did with CallRail. So it's going to call a cell phone number. The cool thing with the Forefront numbers is you don't have to press 1. That was always annoying to me, especially on my iPhone, because I'd have to choose the dial pad and hit 1, and that was always super annoying. So with the Forefront numbers, when you dial out, it will dial your cell phone, but all you do is answer that call and then it connects to the person that you're calling. So that's cool. So the one-click calling now, this is another huge benefit to having this update in here, because every time you try to make a call, I don't know if I have anybody in here yet. I think I'm doing this one. So right now, if I click call, I'm seeing this, right? I see that person's number. I choose whatever phone number I want to use, and then the cell phone number it's going to call, and I can start that call. Now, what we've done is we've made it to where you can just click this button and it knows what it's supposed to use, and it makes that contact so that you don't even see this and have to have the extra click. So it's one-click calling. So everybody's profile, every user. Hey, John, awesome. Thanks for saying that. All right. But in the profile, if you scroll down past your settings, your notification settings, we've got the one-click calling stuff set up here. Obviously, once we have the voice over IP, there will be a toggle for you to do that, to set it to use the voice over IP through the browser. But this can be a little bit confusing, so I want to explain it really quick. From number, right? When the Forefront goes to make that call to that person, it needs to know what number am I supposed to use, because you have probably a lot of phone numbers in your account. And if you choose to use the campaign phone number, what that means is if you have a campaign that is attached to a phone number, which you should, because that helps you track campaign stats for the marketing that you're doing, it'll use whatever campaign is associated with the primary lead of that contact that you're calling, okay? So that way you don't have to go in and make sure you're calling them from the same number. The system will automatically know that, okay? If you don't have a campaign set up for the primary lead of the contact, or that campaign doesn't have an attached phone number, you can choose what fallback number. So you need to do this. is going to use. Okay, so I'm just going to have it default to this if it doesn't have a campaign already attached with the phone number. And then it's going to call my cell phone. So if I save this and then I enable one-click calling and stays on, okay, I guess I clicked it twice really quick. Then I should be able to go over to this one and make that call, and it should dial out. So it is, I've got it on silence. Okay, anyway, I better hang that up. All right, so I made that call. I'm not sure if this showed that. Oh, I need to refresh these. So you click the little refresh button. Yeah, it shows 4 calls. So that call went through, went to my cell phone. It didn't have to pop up. So that saves a ton of time having that one-click calling set up. Yeah, there was a question in the chat about that it automatically selects the number that is set as you for dialing. And in the one-click calling settings, so the cell number, so this is my cell number that it's calling. So it's calling my cell phone number right here. And it's using one of these phone numbers. So when it connects that call to my cell phone and I answer it, that connects it to the person I'm calling. And it looks like it's coming from that number. So that call I just made is going to look like it came from, let's see, in this case, campaign number or organic website. The call that I made, let me go into the history of the lead. Let me make sure I got the outbound call listed in here. It should be listed in this one. Okay, so this might be another thing here where this is not showing a call for some reason, because it's already got the primary lead here attached to this one, but I'm not seeing that call in this. So Sean, could you take a look at that, why that didn't show up? But that would show you, which number it used to actually make that call. But in this case, with this lead, there is the organic website campaign. And if I go to my campaigns, the phone number that I'm using for my organic website campaign is the organic website phone number. So that's the phone number that just dialed out just then. And if I go into my settings for phones, that's this number here. So this 879-1125 is a number that made that call. I wonder if that one, maybe because I hung up as soon as I accepted, didn't connect that call quick enough or something. But anyway, we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, well, it had a message it was going to say to you, like connecting or something like that. So if you hung up before it finished that step completely, then it never actually connected you to the what you was dialing.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's probably what happened there. But all right, let's go back into the one-click calling. So you guys get the idea for one-click calling. It just makes it much quicker. And when we get into the enhancements to the pipeline, you can see why that's even more beneficial for that. Let me make sure I address any of these questions. If we use direct mail. All right, Geraldo, so you're saying if we send direct mail and the number on the mail doesn't ring to us, we would not use the use campaign number when calling out, correct? Yeah, so the idea is on direct mail, you put your direct mail campaign phone number in that direct mail piece. That way, if somebody calls you, then that it would call through that number and know that it was from that campaign for that lead. And so if you were calling out, if you toggle to use the campaign number, then it's going to use that same phone number that they called you to call them back. And then if you didn't want to do that, you would just choose not in the one-click calling, choose not to use the campaign number. So say no, and then just say what number to use. If you were calling that, if this is just for one click, so if you're making a bunch of calls and you wanted to just go through and use one number to do that. And I know some people on here, some of the customers in here will make all the outbound calls through a different number because they want to track how many of the calls or whatever are being made, how many minutes are being used calling calling people. So they use different numbers, but otherwise, if you have this toggled off, I think I have to save the changes, but if I toggle this off and I go back, anytime I make a call without the one-click calling, and it shows me this, and I have the option of which number to call from, right? And this should default to the campaign number if there's a campaign number attached, and it did go to this one, and I can change that if I want. And then you can initiate the call. So it's just one extra step you're removing, but when you're making a lot of calls, that one extra step is a lot less annoying than doing all those things. All right, if your team members have their own unique tracking numbers, is there a way to use it for the call tracking number of the specific user that's dialing and not always the one campaign number? And yeah, that's the case I was just talking about. So for that user in their profile, so this is per profile, this is per user, this is not per the whole account. So I have another user in this account, and if they log in, they're not going to have this saved like I have it. So in that case, you would just choose no for the campaign number and just choose whatever phone number it is, and then save that. And then it'll always dial out when they do the one-click calling out using their number that you have set up for them. So if I didn't answer those to y'all's satisfaction, let me know in the chat, but yeah, okay, got it, cool. Awesome. All right, cranking right along. Let's get into the inbox. Super excited about this. Inbox was meant to address a couple situations, and mainly that the new lead column for people starting to get stacked up, right? And that's really bogs down the pipeline and some of the going to some of the other pages in the tool. And it wasn't ideal because any of those new leads that came in end up at the bottom of a super long list, and it kind of breaks down the whole paradigm of having that pipeline, right, in the active pipeline. And so you might still have that new column over in here because, when we transitioned and migrated the accounts, that could still be here because we don't want to disrupt all of that for you. But you have, if you have a ton of leads in there, that new column is really for new leads that came in that should be dealt with right away and moved. And so the idea is to always have that be 0. And but people are leaving it there for reasons, I think, of contacting people still trying to make sure they contacted them. And so what we did was we created an inbox to where the new leads show up in this inbox. And the goal is that you always have inbox 0, right? You don't have anything in your inbox because when it comes in, somebody on your team needs to deal with it, right? Somebody's got to handle that new lead that came in as soon as possible. And so it's a place that's dedicated to that, and that when you see that something's in there, it can be taken care of. And we have the new button over here on the left that has a badge on it if you have things in here that shows you that. Now, the new leads that populate inside of this inbox, that call scripts, if you're using call scripts to have leads come into your system, if you've got those URLs to people that are taking calls, those leads will come into the inbox. If your phone numbers, in the phone settings, you have a create lead setting here, and that's toggle right here. If you wanted to create a lead, which is all your normal marketing numbers, the reason why you might not want to have that create a lead is if it's like a business number or something where you're calling, agents and title companies and stuff like that, and they're returning calls. You don't want those creating leads, so you mark that. But if these numbers are creating leads, then a new call that comes in from an unknown number to your account, or a text message comes in, it's going to create a lead in the inbox for that. Also, webhooks, obviously, if you've hooked up other services like batch leads or Mojo or whatever, and you've got webhooks coming in with new leads, or Carrot website, Lead Propeller website, whatever you've got, those will come into the inbox as well. The idea is to know that there's a new lead and it hasn't been taken care of if it's sitting in the inbox. Only necessary information and action for more efficient handling. So whenever you go into this inbox, okay, so there's a testing text that just came in. So I've got this inbound comm here, but this is not a new lead. Let me do I have to let you guys know, this is also whenever we do these releases and these walkthrough videos, it's like when you see even big companies like Apple, and they go out, and I'm always afraid that something is not going to work because it's just bound to when you're doing these kind of things. So bear with me if that happens, but.
Are you trying to make a new lead, Danny? If so, all you gotta do is change my number and I can call back in real quick.
Oh, it's fine. I wanted to have one in because I wanted to keep doing it just to show, go through a little bit of a sequence. I appreciate that though.
Okay.
So everybody bear with me. I'm going to text the organic website number. And I'm going to walk through basically the whole process of this new inbox here. And then we'll get into the enhanced, make sure the number's right. Okay, you see how this just popped up with some new stuff here. Now I've got this new lead because this text came in. I'm going to go ahead and put the name here because I know who I am. But anyway, you click on that and then you can put in the name. I just hate seeing unknown name all the time and all this stuff. Okay, so let me close that. See my name down here. So the new lead came in, right? What information do you see for this new lead that's selected in the inbox? I can see that the text, I got a text in here. If there was a call, there would be the communication. I think over here in this one, it shows, the voicemail, and you can see that it's a call. But you can see that, this guy, Danny Johnson, texted us saying, I want to sell my house. Do you buy houses? Right. And so if this came in through a webhook or something else. Okay. If this came in through a webhook or, a call script or something like that, you're going to have information in here. So it shows you all that stuff right away because you're looking at the lead. You're probably going to want to make contact with them, right away. So you need to see this pertinent information if it came over, right? So it's really cool because it's right here for you to see. And then you can dial, you can make that call, right? Organic website's already populated because it came in through that phone number. I can send a text and then you can see that this is here. I can say, yes, of course. Do you know who you are talking to, right? Obviously, this is just testing purposes. You never say that to somebody else. But anyway, so that went through. It shows me that I did this. And I already told the team we got to swap this around. The newer one should be at the bottom, the new text. But and shows you that. So I did that. I sent that out to them. And then I got that message. I'd like an offer. And then so I sent that other message in here. And let me see, this should populate here. Let me refresh this real quick. And so you'd see that I like an offer here. And so what I'm going to do at this point is I made contact with them, right? And we're doing something, I might call them or whatever. But let's just say we didn't make contact with them. I've already got the status over here and you can see we have these different stages. I'm going to cover this in just a minute, right? But I've already made contact and I'm moving this now to analysis needed into active pipeline because I'm already working this lead, right? I'm going to try to turn this into a deal. I've made contact with them, right? So I'm going to move it over to that and I'm not going to set the next contact because I don't really need to do that yet. If I did need to do that and I had some quick notes like try to contact, but said to call tomorrow or something, you can leave a note and then that will show up over here or if somebody else did or whatever. But this is here. I've taken care of this. I've moved it to analysis needed and I'm going to click done because the inbox 0 is what we want over here. So now I've marked that as done and you can see those inbound comms have been also marked as done. It's been addressed. It's been taken care of. It's now over in my pipeline right here, just what we were dealing with. And then you work it as you normally would through your own workflow. All right, inbox 0 concept. Cool, Tyler, that's awesome. Let me see. Danny, did you say you're changing this text layout to show latest text at the bottom, correct? Yes. Yes, I did, John. Yeah, we want to mimic what it's like on the phone to see the newest message at the bottom. So there's already a task enough for them to do that. And I was pretty sure, it feels like we go back and forth on this, but yeah, it should be swapped around. And in the iOS app, that's already like that. Speaking of the iOS app, it's in waiting for review from Apple. So we're hoping that will end up today, and then you'll have the update for all of this stuff to be in the iOS app as well. Okay, getting all these calls right now. All right. So let's see. So we've done that, right? That's the inbox lead. And obviously, like I said, if there's a webhook or something or a website lead, you'll have that other information in there. Now let's look at the other part of the inbox, which is inbound comms. And this is basically new responses from existing contacts, right? There was an issue before where we basically, it wasn't a huge issue, but you can look at your comms every day and you could filter these by unaddressed inbound, which means any text that came in that nobody said that they took care of and clicked on the not addressed, right? But I didn't like having that sort of list like that. I mean, it's still going to be here. It's still in the system. You can still do this. But what we wanted was when you're doing a ton of follow-up, which you all should be doing with automated follow-up, you could have 300, 400, 500 different leads that are being automatically followed up with text messages, emails, and then, tasks to make calls and stuff like that. So if one of those people, or even an active lead in your active pipeline, contacts you, any contact that's in your system contacts you, you need to know about that communication. And then you need to know that somebody, right, on your team, especially if you have a team, had done something with that communication. They saw the communication, they responded, and they did whatever needed to be done with it. And so we have the inbound comms inbox. It's a part of this inbox, right? We were looking at new leads. Now we're looking at new communications that came in. You also want to have this go to 0, right? So if I click done and then this person contacts me again, which this is Sean on the team. If I click this done, and you can see these are the 2 that came in that have not been addressed because they're active right here in the inbound comms. That's why it's got the little orange dot. Now what's cool about this is, a text and a call came in from this person. And instead of having 2 entries in here, we group these together, okay? And that's just so that you don't end up with, you're dealing with this one, but you can see the whole communication. I can see both of these communications. I don't want to have to click done on one of them and have another one that's the exact same thing, and I have to click done on it. And especially if they're separated in time, it just kind of like the latest message is going to put this thing at the top, and you're going to see all of those grouped communications from that person, right? Because obviously too, if you haven't gotten to it and they're sending you a bunch of messages, there's some urgency that shows by having that, right? Either that, or it shows your team is not responding quick enough to these responses, been sitting there too long, and you can see the timestamps to see, these things came in quite a while back, nobody's responded. So that's a really cool way to deal with that. All right, the other thing that you mentioned while we're here on this whole inbound comms thing, right, is where do these communications get attached to the lead? Most situations inside of Forefront is a lead, one contact, right? A motivated seller, the property they're selling, one lead, one contact for that record. There are a lot of cases also, though, it's not it's a small fraction of it, but there's still cases where you have one contact, multiple records, right? When if that contact that has multiple leads in here sends you a message, which lead does that go to, right? We can't just say it's the latest one, but that's what the tool does. It says, okay, the latest lead that came in is now the primary contact the primary record for that contact, but you can change that. I just want to let you guys know and be aware of this. So if I look at, I'm going to go ahead and put Sean's name on here because, again, I just hate seeing that like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put his name in here. And so, yeah, and then I click on him and I can see he's attached. He's a primary record. His primary record is this one, right? And if I want to give that an address, I'm going to click into the lead. Go ahead and pull this puppy in, see our map and everything. And then I've got that there. And if I click on them again, so the primary record is the Devonshire property, right? This is the primary one. If we had multiple, I could choose which one is the current primary, so that any future inbound communications will be attached automatically to that record, right? You can see here in the communications for Sean that they're all attached here. If I want to change that, I can just click this and change which lead that communication actually went to. So we had a lot of debate and argument about how this all should be handled. And at first it was that these communications would come in and you have to say which lead it should be attached to. That's too much work, right? Your team, like, to have to figure all of that out is just crazy, and it's not ideal for efficiency. And so we felt like having this idea of that primary record, primary lead for a contact at any given moment and just automatically assigning those communications was the ideal way to go, right? And if there's yeah, and so that's why you see the one property up here, right? And so if there's a communication that came in, primary record was this one, but they had another property, if you clicked on Sean, you would see these other properties and know that there could be another one in there. All right, so we have a question there, and let me mute that person. Okay. Is there a text length limit on outbound text? I think call rail is 140. Okay, no limit. They'll just be broken up, right, Sean? So the question was there a limit for text of 140
Yeah,
callers?
so there may be a theoretical one, maybe like, I don't know what it is, but it's definitely not 140. It's definitely a lot longer. So you shouldn't run into any issues unless you're sending a book.
Okay, where does it get broken up into multiple texts? Sean, do you know that? If not, we need to find out, and then we'll send the message out to everybody.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely significant. We've been playing with it and haven't run into the issue.
I could try to send you a text really quick and just do something really long, and maybe see what happens with that. Let me get some text. Now where to pull the text from. This is funny text, but I'm going to Cozumel, and the different things with getting pulled over in Mexico or whatever, just reading up on that. Anyway, so that's what that is. I'm going to send this text over. So it shows characters of 1,076 for this one. And I'm going to send this text over to you, and let's see what happens with this. Hopefully it doesn't go bonk. And then this should update. But Sean, can you confirm?
Yeah, I just got the whole thing in one massive text string.
So it's not in two, broken up into two?
No, it's one message, all completely just as you would expect, just like it shows right there.
Okay. So that was 1,074, Mike. So you should be pretty good about having that to where you can send a good size. Obviously, you don't want to be sending people, books either too. So, but all right, there's a question from Kevin in there. Multiple contacts, same property. Does it make sense to change the phone number to the primary contact? I'm sorry, Sean, can you read Kevin's chat there?
Sorry, that might be a little confusing.
Make any sense?
Well, do you want to explain it, Kevin?
Yeah, so if you have like a wife and a husband, because obviously everybody's managed differently, right? Like you're texting the wife and you're calling the husband and they're both hitting you up at different times of the day. Like if you were to just have a conversation with them and note one of them as the primary and you have multiple kind of leads in here, if you just change the primary phone number, would it merge those two leads or do they stay separate?
Oh, if that person, okay, so if that person after the
Like if, yeah, right. If after the fact, if you went back and changed the number, so there's two leads with the same phone number, would the system automatically merge the contacts?
Well, I think if they use the same number, it's going to be on.
I guess I'm Yeah. So I guess I'm suggesting multiple numbers, right? Because again, husband and wife is a lot of the stuff that I'm running into. You're getting two different dialogues going on. Is it possible for the notes to come up under one of these leads if I change the number?
Oh, I see what you mean. If you change that number to that person.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be going forward. It would just be to collect the previous data that you had already collected.
Yeah, that's an issue that we're going to have to address with like duplicate kind of lead stuff.
Yeah, that's,
Sorry, I
that
didn't
doesn't
hijack
have
that.
to.
Now,
Yeah,
it's
so the
something
way-
we're looking
The way
into.
it
for
works
sure.
right, the way it works right now is if you change the number, like, so the communications are tied to a contact, not a number.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. That answers my question. Perfect.
Yeah, because then you could take that contact and add that contact here,
Right.
search for it, and then
That's
you'd have
exactly right.
that with,
Okay. Thanks, guys. Sorry for interrupting.
yeah, no problem. Not an interruption. Okay, Sean, Jessica put something in there. If you'll take a look at that and help her out with that. Working through the kinks. All right, let's see. So we covered the idea of the primary, and that's looking at the contact, right? Clicking the contact, you see the primary. They have multiple. The primary one's the one that those communications are going to automatically be attached to, but then you can change that here by doing that. Now you can see I just sent that text to Sean, right? But I sent it from this contact page. So it wasn't from the lead. And you can see how it's not attached to a lead because I sent it directly from this page, right? So you can attach the lead if you do that, or just keep it attached to just Sean so that doesn't show up. So this was just a message I was sending to him. And I don't want him to show up on Devonshire, so it won't because I didn't attach it to that, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. All right. So let's get into the rest. We are 50 minutes in and we got a little bit more to cover. Enhanced pipeline. Okay, so this is a big one to help with also what was bogging down a lot of the pipeline for people. So the other issue with the way things were existing before in the single pipeline was a lot of people would have a contacting, contact not made kind of column that where they would move it if it wasn't already still in the new one, they'd move it into that one because there's
Hello, this is Arnoldo.
contact with them. And then the other side of that was follow-up, right? If you're doing manual follow-up or automated would take it off of the pipeline, but manual follow-up, there was a ton of people that have follow-up columns where they're keeping all of that inside of that column, and it's really bogging this down. An active pipeline of working leads really, should be probably no more than like 100 properties in this active pipeline here. So if you've got more than that and have a good reason for it, I'd love to know about it so that we can help make some other adjustments. Obviously, we're going to do more performance enhancements on everything that we've got built in here, but we're doing that not just for performance, but also for efficiency in handling all this stuff. And what I mean by that is the new stages that we have fitting what is usually the workflow for everybody, right? Regardless of how they handle the leads that come in, stuff like that. So we have new lead stages. So instead of just an active pipeline, the main pipeline, now we have contacting stage, the active, follow-up, completed, dead, and non-lead, right? Contacting are the ones you're still trying to make contact with the people. Say you got a web lead or something, or they texted you, but you were not able to make contact after that. You can keep them in this place now where people in contacting you've not reached them yet. Active, it's like the current pipeline. Follow-up are leads that you're following up with, whether manually or automated. And I'm going to show you all of that here in just a little bit. Completed, these are deals that you've completed. You can now create a status within each of these. So if you have different ways of completing deals, you can organize those by different statuses like rented, sold, owner financed, whatever you want to do. Subject to all that stuff, you can create different statuses inside of that stage. Dead, leads that are dead to you, right? So you're never going to buy the property. It's a dead lead. It was a lead, but now it's dead. There's no chance that you're ever going to buy it. So you're going to move it into dead. Non-lead is stuff like spam or testing leads and stuff like that you don't want to count towards your stats in your system. You can put them into a status you create for non-leads. So as mentioned several times already, in the settings here, under pipeline settings, you now have a section for each of these stages: contacting, active, follow-up, completed, dead, and non-lead. You can create as many statuses now as you want in any of these stages, right? So that you can group things the way you want to group them that makes sense for you and your business and how you're operating this. You might also notice that we've now moved all the automations into each status down here. And I don't have any in this account that's newly created because it would show here under automations. But if I click manage, you're going to see what you used to see when you clicked the 3 buttons on the pipeline that are no longer there because we're cleaning this up, but it's on settings. Each of these statuses, you can do those same automations that we had before, and you can create new statuses in the different stages and create automations for those. Also, the time period that a lead is allowed to be in that status is also here so that you can see it go from green to red if it's been too long inside of a status, right? Okay, so those are the different stages. Now, how do they appear now in the Enhanced pipeline? Is over here on the left now, you have the different stages. And then when you click into them, you can see the different things. Now, it gets different though when we're doing contacting. So I click on contacting, I showed this a minute ago. We now show this in a list view because we anticipate people having, could be having 50, 100, or maybe more of these properties are trying to contact the seller still. And we're showing you only relevant information. You don't need to see the card, click open to each one. You can see everything mostly that you need to see right here, including how many attempts that you've made to contact that person and when the last one was and how it was done. Texted last today at 10:45 a.m. So we can attempt to make contact again. If I had email set up, I could do an email. And if they had an email address as well, I can leave a note really quick. First note. And it's going to show me right there, show me down here the history too. If I want to see the history now, I can click this and see the history of notes as well without having to open up the entire lead. So I think that's really cool. You can also change this because if you do make contact with them, you can quickly do this change. All right, if you do make contact, you can also just simply open up the whole record and work that. But the idea here is you're contacting the people in this contact list. If you don't make contact again, automatically records the attempt for you. And then you can quickly say when you're going to try to attempt the contact again, right? And then this will order by all of those in here by your next contact dates that you've set. And you can just keep doing that, right? If after a while you come in here and you've had 20 calls and 15 texts, you can decide what to do, right? Whether that goes to dead or if you want to do a skip trace or try to find different contact information, that's something that you can do inside of, and then put into the account and update. But that's the idea for contacting, right? So if you get a new lead that came in, and of course I don't have any in there, but if had a new lead came in and it was over here, and I had it defaulted to first contact needed. And remember, the default of a new lead is set in the different places that you can get a new lead, right? So that's through call scripts, webhooks, or phone settings. The phone setting, if I look at the organic website, the default status for new leads is right here. So new lead created would be put into first contact needed. That's another distinction to make though, right? So a call comes in from a number not in your system. So it's a new lead because I also chose to create a lead right here. It's going to put this in the first contact needed. So if that call creates a lead, not only will it be in my lead inbox, but it will also at the same time be in the contacting list. Okay, it's important to know that inbox is not a status, right? There's not statuses set specifically for inbox. It's just basically pulling out what's new and putting it there, and it can also be seen in these other stages, which is really cool because within the inbox, you can filter by any status or source or person. I guess it's not by statuses. Sean, if y'all would add something, I don't know if there was a reason I'm missing right now, but I think maybe there's good reason to put status in here, maybe. I'm not sure. Okay, and then, so it's important to know that. Then you've got contacting, right? So if that new lead came in, we'll assume this is a new lead. I couldn't get a hold of them. I attempted it. I set the next contact and it's already in first contact need. I can click done and then I know that it's over there in the contacting. right? If I make contact, I can, excuse me, open this up and then move it into an active status like analysis needed. Close that. I'm no longer contacting. It's now inactive. So now I got analysis. Obviously, any step along the way with these statuses, automations could be happening, tasks can be created, all that kind of stuff can be automated for you so that that movement of that status change can do all kinds of stuff for you and your team through those automations that are in the settings for the statuses, right? Back here under these statuses, automations. All right, let's move on. So let's say that we did some things with Devonshire, but it didn't necessarily work out. And so I want to follow up. And it could be something that I end up following up with for a while, but it's now, I feel like it's more in a follow-up than an active, right? It's going, but I'm not necessarily ready to put this into a drip automated campaign. And I know a lot of you are doing this, so you don't have to put it into a drip campaign automated series. You can create your own status and follow-up. And I'm going to put, like, so let's say high priority follow-up. I can choose my next contact date if I want. So let's just say tomorrow at this time, or change this to PM, save that, it's the next contact date, and continue with the status change. Now I'm in follow-up. And guess what? It's no longer in my active pipeline because it's in follow-up stage. And so I can see all my manual follow-ups here. Obviously, I can filter if it gets to be a lot. And this one does have the statuses on here. And then I've got pertinent information about communications that we've had. I've got the last note, all that kind of stuff here. And I can do follow-up, right? But this keeps it off of the active pipeline of stuff that we're close to making a deal. I don't want to move it into follow-up or anything because we're really working this thing where it is already a deal. But if you put it into follow-up, you can have them all here. Everything that goes into those automated sequences will also be showing up under automated, right? This will be all your automated follow-up leads, which could get to be huge as well, but you can filter. You can even filter by the sequences. So if you only want to see the ones that are in, so I don't have any sequences in here, but I would be able to choose it here and you would see that. So the reason for that, I think it was Don had suggested it, but he said sometimes, we've got these, lots of properties in these automated follow-up sequences. And when the team has some downtime, it's good for them to be able to go in and look at which ones are in these different ones and then just start making contact, right? Just not wait for a sequence step to populate with a task, but they just have downtime. They just want to go in and start calling them. Maybe they're done with all their tasks. And so they can do that now. They can go into follow-up, automated, filter by whatever sequence they want. And then it'll order by, it basically orders by the last contact made so that the ones that haven't been contacted in a while, even through an automated message, will be at the top, right? Because if they just got an automated message an hour ago and you're trying to contact them, it sorts them that way for you. And you can see the sort right here, right? Last contact or next contact date. So we cover all of that cool stuff for follow-up and filters. We don't have a filter by temp in here for follow-up. So that's a good suggestion by Tyler. Sean, if you want to put that in. Okay, and while we're at follow-up, I want to make sure I address some of these things. I know Sean and the team are answering a lot of questions in here, but for the sake of everybody else listening that's maybe not following along. Okay, Connor was asking about contacting drop down, having multiple options. Oh, I see. I think I see what you mean. Oh, when I was clicking into the status over here under contacting, the two options, Connor, those are the different statuses for that stage. So if you go into your settings under contacting, see how I have two, you can create statuses that you need within that. So if you want those, you just create them and that'll show up in that. So you can put people into contacting into those statuses. All right, cool. Oh, and I think Sean told him that, so I'm probably duplicating a couple of things here. It sounds like we have consistent follow-up with our non-leads, but perhaps our list of contractor real estate agents. Is that right? Yeah, right now, yeah, we haven't fully built out all the contact stuff. So no, we don't have that just yet, but that is something that we do have our roadmap. Cool. And we'll be sending a copy of this recording if anybody had to duck out because we're already at an hour. Okay, but we're almost done. So follow up. Now completed, you can see the completed records in here. And you can create all these statuses as well. So you can just click on that and see the list of all of them in there. Same thing with dead. If you had any in here, you can see that, and then non-lead as well. Pipeline views. So the pipeline views work exactly the same as they did before. You can select statuses from any of the stages to belong to the pipeline view. And when you have it selected, only those records that fit that pipeline view will show up in the different sections. So it's just really cool because if you had different reasons to have pipeline views containing contacting properties and you don't want to have all those contacting properties for somebody, they can have a pipeline view with only certain statuses within contacting. So if I create a pipeline view and I selected just first contact needed, and then if I filtered by this contact view, then it would only show those within contacting while I have that selected. So pipeline views still work even with the enhanced stages that we have now for pipelines. Okay, moving right along. All right, I think we covered all of that. The other honorable mentions that we have is the recently viewed leads, which are here, and then also up here. You can see, I think it's, I just asked them this the other 15 of the latest leads that were viewed by you. Now it's not per account, it's by the person logged in. So if you are dealing actively with a property with the lead, and that person calls you and they're like, oh, I got to find this thing again. You know, you can click up here if it was something recent and find it very quickly and move right into it. So Gilbert's happy about that. All right, cool. So then that's there. And then eliminating race conditions. Okay, so this is something where it's letting you know that somebody else on your team is currently looking at the same thing, right? So that you're not both maybe doing the same thing or dealing with something in the same way. And we've got that set up in different ways through this one. Got some kiddos here. All right. So see how it says Ray J's viewing. So Ray on the team, perfect timing, Ray. That was awesome. All right. I'm going to assume you did that on purpose. All right. So Ray on my team, so if I go in my users, he's another user in this account. He's actually viewing this same thing that I am right now. If I click over here, he's not on it because he's not viewing it. But if he comes over to it, Ray, go ahead and go over to the next one. It shows that he's now viewing it, right? And on his screen, it shows that I'm viewing it. And then if I move, then it takes it off. And then we know that. Now let's go to the pipeline to contacting, and let's view the, actually, no, it's down here. I'm sorry, go to follow up, Ray, and click on, open up the Devonshire Drive lead, or just do a search for it in there and pull it up. You can see this popped up here now. So now Ray is actually viewing this record as well. All right, so this is a great way to be able to know somebody else is possibly doing something on this, and if you need to Slack them or do something like that, which is a great idea, right? To integrate Slack to be able to just send a Slack message right here. Team's probably like, no. I think it's cool. Yeah, I want to do it. All right, so I'll talk to them after this. But anyway, you can see who, so if there's multiple people on your team as well, you're going to see all of them in there currently in that, as well as the inbox. These are the places where that's happening. Any place that you've got a lead open, you're going to see that up here. If that happens. All right, so no race conditions. All right, so that basically is the walkthrough that I wanted to do for what we've got now. I'm going to open it up now if you have questions. Zapier integrations are basically used for webhooks. So we have webhooks, and the Zapier, basically the action will be a webhook that goes to a webhook that you create within your Forefront account. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Mike said, awesome additions, awesome work, y'all. Thank you, sir. Let me see. Michael Singletary. What's up, Mike? for importing leads. And if you guys are looking for a great skip trace service, Skip Force is awesome. Mike actually runs that up in Austin. So check them out. They've got great skip tracing information. They organize the phone numbers by likelihood of being the best one really well. And the price is excellent too, a lot lower than most other places. But he's saying for importing leads, is there a way to bulk update and assign users to? As far as bulk updating, I'm not sure, Mike. You'll have to probably get with the support team on this one, because we are going to be making updates to this, but I'm a little bit rusty on the import stuff that we can do right now, and probably be really hard and boring for most people to cover. So I'm sorry, but we'll have to reach out to support for that and answer that one. All right. All right, so there's Dustin. I got to scroll up. I think there's some more stuff in here from Dustin. And once we get through these chat ones, if you do want to just speak here and unmute yourself and ask one, once we're done with these, we can move into that if you would rather. I might have to scroll for a while if I didn't cover Dustin's. I don't see it. One related to update. He's asking if the phone systems built in Twilio will be able to eventually do RVM through Forefront directly. That's the first question. You know, honestly, I'm not sure about that because there's so many issues with the regulation stuff about that right now. And, you know, it might be something if you sign something saying that we're not responsible for anything that might happen for doing RVM. But I also have, you know, Twilio is weird because I've read a long time ago, and I don't know if this has changed, but that's actually against their terms of service. So I don't know. I mean, at least the way people were doing it, because the way they were doing it in Twilio is making a call and then immediately making another call to the same number so that it goes straight to voicemail and hanging up on the first one. And I think from what I had read before, that was against their terms of service. So we could get completely shut down from them for doing it. I'd have to find out for that. But so I'd love to put it in, but we got to make sure we can do it in a way that's safe for everybody. Any plans to build a calendar for Calendly integration? Yeah, that's something we're also looking into for coming up in the roadmap is having the calendars, like different calendars if you want. And then we'll look into the Calendly integration as well. Great ideas. Yeah, I like that. Yes, you can link Forefront to Carrot. And I'm assuming you're just saying for new leads that come in. If you're not aware, go to help.forefront.crm.com. That's also in the menu up here on the top right. It's the help link. But this is the knowledge base. We have the integration documents right here. And so for Carrot, it's very detailed. If you click the Carrot website integration, it walks you through exactly step by step, every single step, including getting to where you can have both form submissions, the short one and the long one, come together as one lead inside of Forefront, so you don't have to manually join those. So that's already there. We have the same thing for a Lead Propeller and a bunch of other stuff as well. Great update. Thanks. Can you please briefly outline any plans for enhancing the phone system? Yeah, we'd love to. We had that before in a previous version a long time ago, ringing only during certain hours and then call for. Yes, we look to add enhancements over time. So yeah, we're not going to leave it alone as is. We're going to be doing a lot of that stuff. So very cool. Excited to do that as well. Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. Oh, okay. It's the same one. That was Don. All right. Incoming calls having a number selection menu. All right, Mike, any forecast on incoming callers having a number selection menu? Okay, so you're saying if they call, they can be told a menu. Yeah, we'll look into doing that. I hesitate to say it, but yeah, I mean, that'd be very cool. And we'll look into it for sure to also make enhancements to the phone. And we definitely will be doing a lot more with the phones because that was one of the reasons why we spent all this time building the phones out into here, is so we have that ability to do all of those things in the future. So for sure. Oh, I see. And I'm getting through these chats slower than Ray's helping people out. Ray's already, looks like he's been on top of this stuff, sending people answers. Yes, you can trigger a webhook for a new lead. Let me make sure that hasn't been answered already. Okay, I don't think that it has. I need to find again that. Can you trigger an individual webhook for a lead? Send or trigger an individual webhook for lead. So I'm assuming, because you're saying send a webhook, in the settings under pipeline settings, any of these statuses, you can automatically do a trigger when it enters status or whatever, the different triggers, and then you can send webhook. All right, and then just paste the webhook in here. And what that does is sends all that lead information over to the webhook so that whatever other system you need to pull, what you need to pull, you can do things with that. Okay, and I think some people are doing like click to mail is one of the reasons, like they're sending a postcard. Different cool things that you can do with these. So that's an awesome question because it's a powerful thing that I don't think a lot of people are taking advantage of yet. And the other thing with this is, cool things like now with this change that we have now, if you have, because it used to be any new lead that came in had to go to the new column, right? And so you couldn't say that something different should happen for a different marketing channel than something else. Okay, because some of those is like you've already talked to the person, so sending them a text message automatically wouldn't be good because you just got done talking to them. But like a web lead, you can have that go to a different status that has an automation to send a text to that lead, right? That could even say something like, thanks for visiting our website. We're going to contact you right away. So you can do cool things like that with these status automations and having different statuses. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, there's somebody asking about the average client used for minutes and text volume, budgeting expectations. That's we looked at more of the heavy users in CallRail that are on Forefront using their CallRail. And when we did calculations, one person, had all their data on it and we're looking at it. And just from what he was doing with overage costs, and I don't have the exact numbers right in front of me as far as what he was using minutes wise and stuff like that, but he was saying he's going to save over $100, even with the pricing going from 137 to 199. He's going to save well over $100 a month because these overage costs are so much lower than what call rails are. And we give you more in the allowance. So you don't even hit overage, especially for text. I think they only give you 100 text messages. We give you 1,000. And then after the 1,000, it's only a penny versus I think theirs is like 2 or 2.5 cents per text message, I think. But anyway, yeah. So you can do those calculations based on these numbers. I'm going to update, and I've been preparing for this demo, so I'm going to update the pricing page. We'll have all this on it today. I just have to get to it. Okay, Android version. That's I don't have a date for that. I'm sorry. That's something that we've been talking about, but we don't have a date for it. And the pipelines are a way to appear in chronological order. I guess instead of status due, to change that to be something like status due. That's more of like when you look at the record on the pipeline. This whole status due time, next status change due by is what everything goes off of. So if the order needs to change, it could be that way. As far as when it came into the status, the whole purpose is to bubble up what's due next, like which ones are due first. And so I'm not sure that we can change that, Mike. I think if enough people maybe mention, like in the Facebook group or something, that having the ability to set chronological order, we can look into doing that. And any ability to name a webhook in the auto follow-ups. Let me, follow-ups have been moved over to settings, follow-up settings, by the way, if you're looking for your sequences. So I think what you're asking, I set all this stuff. Let's see. You know what? I'm not going to set all this stuff. if you're new to Forefront, there's a store and you have our default follow-up sequences. You can install those. And when you do install these, it goes into your follow-up settings. So just click follow-up settings. And I think I might have to refresh here, or we might have an issue. Okay, there it is. All right, so there's the one I just installed. If I don't want to modify the default one so it's always there, I can duplicate it. See how it says copy over here, and I can modify this one. That way I always have that default one that was still there. But on the new, if you click new step on the follow-up sequence, say this is one of the Apple moments maybe. Which one's the copy? This one's the copy. We're going to manage. Click new step. Here, I can do send webhook. I'm not sure. And then that's the URL to go. I'm not sure what you mean by name the webhook. But this is how you set a step to do a webhook in the automated follow-up and what time and day offset within that sequence to do it.
Yeah, I think he's wanting to basically save webhooks and use them over and over. But I don't think it's really necessary the way we have it set up. But I guess it could make it harder to update in the future. But
this is an outbound webhook, so there's nothing more than just the URL from that other one.
right. But I think he's referring to if he has like wants to put it in like 7 places.
Okay. All right, and then
If you have multiple webhooks and you want to categorize them and just make them easier to find if you need to use them for other things.
yeah, that's smart, like naming the get it now. Yeah, Sean, if you want to put a note, we'll put a thing in the stuff to review to go into development. And we're doing that as well for other people. Just because I said that on this one doesn't mean that those other ones, the other suggestions weren't done that way too. We're doing that for all of these. For imports, so Sean was answering, I think this is for you, Mike, Mike. The imports, assigning them to a user can be set primary user email address so that whenever you import a lot of records, they can all go and be assigned to that user. And that answer is in the chat from Sean, if you're looking for it. Doug Price was asking, is there a way to set up automated text follow-up when a new lead comes in? Automated text follow-up. Well, I mean, the one-off like that, I think that, see, and I might be getting behind on questions and what I've talked about, but the way, if you're doing a one-off, like we don't have a way to automatically add somebody to a follow-up sequence through a status automation. But for the status, if you create a new, like a status, let me just do it here, right? Contacting, because I'm going to assume that we've not made contact yet, you know, in a way where we're talking to them. So automated text contact needed or something like that. I'm going to make that status and I'm going to just put it at the end here. So now in my contacting status, I've got a new one here. And what I can do is inside of this, I can say when it enters the status, I'm going to text the primary contact. All right, I'm going to use this phone number. And then I'm going to send them, thanks for reaching out. We will call, and you know, whatever. And then I can create that automation and that's there. And so now if I go to a place like a, since we're doing the phone stuff already, if I go to this and I say anything that comes in from the organic website, let's do the Google Ads. If I go into here from the Google Ads and I say the default status for new leads, I can choose now that automated text next contact needed and save that. So now any kind of new lead that comes in through this phone number, and you can do this for webhooks, call scripts, any way that these leads automatically come in, it's going to give that lead, it'll show up in the inbox, but it'll give that lead also that status that I just created, which was the automated text contact needed, and it'll fire off that automated text. So yeah, great question. Very cool thing to be able to do.
Wait, can you circle back to that? I'm not sure I'm following that.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So I'm going to try to maybe explain it higher level so that when our heads has been in this, it can seem a little bit more complicated, but basically what's happening is you have different ways to have leads come into the system, right? You can set up a webhook so that stuff from your website goes into Forefront. You can have the phone numbers. If somebody calls from a number that's not known, it's not a contact in your system, it's probably a new lead, and you can have a new lead be created. So a new text comes in, you can do the same thing. Call scripts are basically, if I install this and I can choose which status that new lead that comes in that's entered through this call script gets. So I can choose automated text contact needed, and it's going to install that script, which is this. If I click on this URL, then I'm going to give my calling system answering service this link, and then they can fill this lead out. And when they submit that new lead, it's going to go into my system, into my inbox, but it's going to have that status I just said, which was the automated text contact needed. So call script, you can set the default status of when a new lead gets created. Webhooks, you can do the same thing. Phone settings, you can do the same thing. Default status for new leads. So that anytime a new lead comes in, it's going to automatically have that status. And then that status, which can be whatever you want in your system, any of your statuses, you can go into your pipeline settings under where all your statuses are. And then you can choose to have automations happen when a lead enters the status or exits status or whatever the trigger is, but it's all based around that status. And you can have things happen. So in this case, like I just showed you the call script. If the answering service filled out that new lead here, they entered all that information and then they clicked, submit. That lead information is going to come into my inbox, but it's also going to have the status of automated text contact needed, which is just the label of the status. And I have an automation set up for that. That's going to send a text to the primary contact of that lead, which will be the seller, right? Should be the primary contact. So this text message will go to that seller, if there's a phone number for them, to do whatever you want. So you can do all kinds of automations based on that. Does that cover it?
So this is just moving the status automations to this place, right? So it's
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All the status automations now are handled within the settings for statuses instead of on the,
Okay.
you no longer have access to them here.
Yeah, because we have a status automation when we use the web form, for our clients, the texters will fill out the web form, it'll go into the new status, and then once it ends up in that new status, it'll send 2 text messages, 2 minutes apart from each other, just to
nice.
kind of welcome them, and then ask them what a good time to schedule a call is. So is this what you're just showing is replacing that, where I would do that basically?
Yeah, just where you would manage
Okay.
it.
Okay.
It should still be in your account. Everything just kind of got moved to the settings. Like you shouldn't have to recreate any of that. All those automations are just now over there to be found.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. All right, let's see. Well, you're welcome, Gertha. Appreciate it.
Have you guys done anything for managing internal team communication, like tagging your team members, and how do you see whether they addressed what it was that they were tagged on?
Yeah, not yet. I know that that's something that was recommended, and we do definitely have it on our review board of things to add. And so what's being referred to right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like if I come in here and I leave a note for Ray on this lead that he's actually currently looking at. Hey, Ray, here's to you, friend. Whatever. And then that's sent over to him. He gets the notification for it. Ray, if you would, actually, I need you to, hopefully you're still here on this one, on the, you should still be on here. Leave me a note and tag me if you would on one of the leads. I don't know if he's helping customers right now, so All right, cool. This should be in here.
And also, have you guys implemented live updates? So if you're in a record and a text, like right now, or as of yesterday, if a text came in while I have the record open, it won't come up into the lead unless I refresh the page or click out of it and click back into it.
Yeah, we haven't done that for the record itself. That happens
Okay.
through a lot of different places of the system, like the pipeline inbox and all that kind of stuff. But the lead itself, we haven't put that in yet.
Gotcha.
And it's been something that's been asked for a little bit more, so we might move that up in priority. But back to your thing about being mentioned,
Yeah.
you were saying basically, is there a way to know that? See, Ray mentioned me. If I click this, Ray said, I think this dude's also crazy at Danny Johnson. So he wants, what I'm assuming you're saying is you want to be able to know that I saw that and did something with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of similar to the addressed, unaddressed feature for like inbound communication.
Okay. Do you hear that, Sean? You might be working on some stuff, but Ray will write it down.
I
as
heard
well.
it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. And if anybody else has been having any issues with not knowing if things are being, the mentions have been responded to or looked at or dealt with, and you would like to know that and you feel like that's a great thing, maybe just put a sounds good or we'd love that or something like that. We'll probably have another Q&A call before too long to go over basically a list of upcoming features that we're going to be working on, and then getting sort of maybe some voting on which ones people feel like ought to come first.
Another thing I could see being valuable, especially with the new phone system, is having like a pop-out ability. So you can still be working on leads, but have, like the phone communication in a separate window. And I know you could probably just open a new window and go to that page, but I don't know if there's a better way to do that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the whole, opt-out thing?
Yeah, like not opt out, but like a pop out window, like that's a separate window. So I can still like manage leads, like as I'm communicating through text with people, right? In the window that has the text, the phone system opened up, I can also still be working in other leads while I'm kind of in between calls and stuff like that.
That's like sort of like I think this is Sean, like loved this idea probably a year ago. I think he was talking about it. So it's kind of like having a minimize, like you can, if you have it open, instead of closing it, you kind of minimizing it, just shows up down at the bottom.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Reopen it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, performance and stuff like that, we have to keep in mind all of this, because when we keep a lot of things open, we also have to know that those are all open on different people's screens, and then also to be able to update and send information where it's needed when things update. So as you can imagine, that becomes a huge undertaking. And so though it sounds like really easy, we have to really consider all the stuff to do it. But we'd love to do stuff like that. We look into doing that. Cool. And then Mike Newby saying live updating on the text would be amazing. I agree with that. I think if anything, the communication ought to update. Yeah, so Connor was asking if we do any deep dive sessions or things like that, or breakout sessions. And that's a really good question. I'm sure that we'll start doing more of that where we have scheduled instead of just on the Q&A or maybe during the Q&A. But I've been, yeah, thanks, Mike. I've also been putting off having the team create videos because we changed so much of the UI. It's like if we create all these videos, we have to recreate them, right? And so I don't know if if you've not been to the YouTube page for a while, anyway. But that's now that we've got this new with the enhancement of the phones and then the new pipeline here, we'll be creating a ton of videos like doing deep dive and digging into all the different stuff, the power of Forefront, and being active on social media, getting it out there too. So you'll be seeing a lot more from Forefront now that we've got this built in.
Feel free to leverage us as well, Danny. This is Chris Deal, if you're not aware. We're going to be putting out a lot of video content on forefront as well for our own YouTube channel as well. So we're happy to help out any way we can.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Yeah. And yeah, if we've got more questions about, yeah, that was a good point, Mike, because I'm actually getting hungry too, but love to know about turning off automations on holidays or weekends. Oh, I see, not having automations fire off. So that's a good settings idea from Dustin about, having something set somewhere where you decide that you don't want any follow-up or anything happening on certain days, because there's no way to know that whenever you add it, if it's all based on days offset. Okay, as you stole somebody else's idea. Okay, well, I do that all the time, so it's all good.
I've thrown out that out there a few times.
Cool. All right. Well, everybody, yeah, if there's more questions, we're going to have a Q&A call next week on Wednesday, and then obviously support at Forefront CRM, and we'll answer things with that, answer any specific questions. And really, thanks for your patience. We wanted to get this out much sooner, but thank you for your patience and support of Forefront, and just super excited for improving the phone system, especially getting the VoIP out there soon, and all this kind of stuff, because with the enhanced pipeline and being able to set those automations and set different statuses on new leads, it's really cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate all the support, everybody. Thank you. Everybody have a great day. I'm going to get something to eat.
Thanks, Danny. Great job.
No, thank you, Don.